Welcome to SportsWrap Online. Joe Schmit from KSTP.com, along with Tom Pelissero, the senior editor of ESPN1500.com. Wow, what did you have to do to be the senior editor?
Apparently be older than Phil.
Okay, well, that's by about 2 months. Let's talk a little bit about the Vikings, because the Vikings right now, even though it's their off season, it's a big season because he's looking for assistant coaches. We do know that Josh McDaniels interviewed for the offensive coordinator position on Friday, but we also know that apparently Miami's also in the hunt. What have you heard?
Well, basically what it comes down to for McDaniels is he's looking for the best opportunity. He's got to reestablish himself after what happened in Denver. Widely regarded as a bright offensive mind. I think he's still only about 34 years old. He's a young guy, but he's got to get into the situation where he can run his offense. I think that there's more selling going on in that case with the Vikings to McDaniels. McDaniels has to look at it and go, I don't have a quarterback. I want to run a shotgun spread offense like I've run everywhere. Sidney Rice could be a free agent. Percy Harvin's really the only locked-in guy. Who knows who the other receivers are going to be? And Leslie Frazier made very clear when I asked him, and you were standing there last night, he wants to run the football and wants Adrian Peterson to be the focal point of the offense. Can McDaniels do that? He's never had a run-based, run-first offense.
And let's face it, they've got some holes in that offensive line too. I mean, their center position is certainly suspect. You know, Hutchinson's coming off an injury. He's getting older. McKinney did not have the best year. Lord Holt actually got worse his sophomore year than his freshman year. And then you got Herrera coming back off an injury too at the other guard. So you've got, you know, all across the line you got problems too.
And that's a huge part of it when they're looking at it in terms of being able to run the ball with Adrian Peterson. He gets more unblocked yardage maybe than anyone in the NFL. You look at his big runs this year. It's not as though those were real clean zone plays. That was him cutting back, going the opposite direction because the blocking wasn't there. The offensive line is going to need to be remade. They need to get an influx of younger players there. And it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to see the offensive coordinator hired and then probably bring in his guy for the offensive line. You can't do it the other way, because if you're going to try to keep running the zone blocking scheme, you need somebody who's going to be able to execute that scheme. If you want to run power, you got to get somebody who's really going to know that scheme.
You know, a lot of people were saying that if Josh McDaniels takes this job, that Kyle Orton or Tim Tebow will get traded to the Vikings. I think you're putting way too much power in an offensive coordinator at this position, because you still got Spielman, who's got to be part of this decision-making process, and you got Leslie Frazier. It's not just all about the offensive coordinator.
And I think that there's a lot of logic going on there.
Right.
It may not, in fact, be grounded in reality. You're right. I don't think that's going to be Josh, bring in whoever you want. But you look at the guys who are going to be available around the NFL, there's probably a very limited number of guys who, whether it's via stopgap or via a young player who's going to be available, that maybe you can develop. There's not a whole lot of guys out there. Do you want to trade for Kevin Cobb? I don't think the Eagles really want to let him go, but he could probably be had for a certain price. Do you want to bring in Kyle Orton, who has been highly productive? He's an efficient player. You look at year after year, he's very consistent. He knows how to operate the sort of offense that McDaniels wants to run. Or there's Tebow, who's a huge X factor. The Vikings did like him last year, but was that more so with Childress, or was that more so with Spielman?
Right.
I think we'll find out. If you see more Tebow smoke coming around the Vikings, we'll find out who, in fact, was a supporter of him.
And then, of course, you'll have to find out what happens in the draft. I mean, the other option, and last night on SportsWrap, Frazier talked about it. Their perfect world scenario: draft a quarterback, develop a quarterback, build the team around him for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting how he answered that question, too, just saying that they do want to build the team around the quarterback, which is obviously a common franchise building theme, but it sure sounded as though they want to find that guy this year. Whether you need a stopgap or not, I'm of the mind that you have to bring in a veteran regardless, because you don't know. No matter where you draft a guy, you don't know if he's going to be ready to play, and you don't want to ruin a guy like an Alex Smith or a David Carr, throw him out there from day one and have him get beat around behind a bad offensive line and take their lumps. You've got to be careful with that. Also found it really interesting what he said to you about Joe Webb, the fact that they think he can be a quarterback, but you'd be doing a disservice to the team to keep him off the field. Certainly sounds like to me they want to find him in some sort of a slash, wildcat, receiver, whatever role.
Kick returner.
Get him out there.
Yeah, just get his hands on the football because he's such a great athlete. I think we both agree Michael Singletary will be on this staff.
I think that's fair to say. You know, when I asked him last night, do you really need to interview him? He said, well, maybe I'll call him and ask him about himself just to mess with him. I don't see any reason that he wouldn't be. It's a natural fit.
Yeah, unless for whatever reason, family-wise, he wants to take a year off. Secondly, Darrell, Bevell, and Murphy, the special teams coach. Are those two guys on the staff at training camp?
At this point, I would bet not, just based on the fact that Frazier said he's told them that if they get another opportunity that comes along, don't wait on account of him. If you get more security somewhere else, go for it, because Frazier doesn't know how long this is going to take. If he thought that Bevell and or Murphy were definitely going to be a part of his staff, he would tell them to wait. He's trying to do the right thing by both sides, do the right thing by his guys, as well as do the right thing by the team. But bottom line, if he thought those guys were going to be the coordinators, he'd probably be telling them, don't look around.
And I give him some credit. This is his staff, his team. In this
You have
league,
one shot to do it.
You get one shot in this league. Well, Tom, good stuff as normal, and we'll have you back on again, because this is a highly rated website.
It is. We're getting the clicks.
Yeah, we are. We're clicking along. That'll do it for Sports Wrap Online. We'll see you next time.